about other inventors. Who's one of the most famous inventors in U.S. history? I can't.
Da Vinci?
Da Vinci? Yeah, he's not American, but yeah, absolutely. He's brilliant mind for times. Anybody ever hear of Ben Franklin? Probably one of the greatest inventors. If you get a chance, sometimes Google some of his inventions, you wouldn't even think of some of the stuff that he invented, came up with concepts for. Another guy by the name of Thomas Edison.
Yeah.
What did he invent?
Invented the light bulb?
He actually was interesting is he technically didn't invent the light bulb. There's a Hiram Maxim that invented the light bulb, but Thomas Edison made the most practical light bulb that most of America could actually use, that they could build. And there's a common quote with him that says that they asked him, like, how long did it take you to develop this type of light bulb? And he said, oh, over 1,000 mistakes. And he said, well, how did you keep going? He goes, I didn't worry about it. I figured 1,000 ways not to make the light bulb. And so it was kind of this positive attitude. And so that, reading those stories kind of motivated me to want to keep inventing new products and doing stuff and understanding that failure is okay. How many of you have played baseball or softball or fast pitch in your life? And if you bat 300 or higher, is that good? 400 or higher. And you go to the Hall of Fame if you hit 300 or higher. But what if you got 3 out of 10 on a math test? Major failure, right? Well, cool thing about business in certain instances and inventing products is it's kind of like baseball. You can invent 1 or 2 out of 20, 30 and still be successful. Interesting there. So that's kind of what kind of drove me into want to get into learn more about history, and I kind of dove into U.S. history a lot and world history, and that's kind of what led me to go back and get my teaching credential, and then it was really great to reconnect with Mr. Lockwood and be able to be in this class with you guys. I thought it'd be a fun subject is the differences in comparison and contrast between a democracy, a dictatorship, and a republic. And why that was interesting to me in the beginning is that if you go back to my business career, when I started selling a lot of products internationally, not only importing products from countries like China, Pakistan, Vietnam, Australia, selling products to Japan, I started getting into regulations of governments. In all different governments have different ways that they handle businesses. There was a situation where I had prepaid a factory in a country that was a communist country, and I prepaid the factory and I didn't get my product, and basically kept calling the factory, and the factory had been shut down by the government for no reason other than the fact that they just decided to shut them down. They thought there were too many of those type of businesses, and they just basically took my product. And there was no recourse I could have. And I didn't get angry at that country, and I didn't get angry at that factory. I got angry at myself. I didn't do my homework. I didn't do my research. I didn't do my history lesson to find out from what type of businesses ran through that country, and I learned. And so that's kind of, again, what kind of drove me into learning more about history. And so I kind of became fascinated with the different forms of government throughout time. And so I'm sure all of you have heard of a democracy, right? You raise your hand if you've heard democracy. Can anybody give me an example of a democracy?
Rome, I'm pretty sure.
Close. Rome, actually, when it first started, you're on the right path. They were more originally a republic, which we'll get into in a minute. Close. Is that just grabbing your bagel over you? An example. I'll give you a simple example of a democracy, not a government. Every Sunday for years, I have 3 children. 2 are in college now, one's a 6th grader, and my wife. Every Sunday we had a thing where we said, okay, we're going to do a family vote on what we're going to do for dinner. And so my 2 sons came home from spring break last weekend from the colleges, and they all came home and they said, let's make a vote. 4 out of the 5 voted to go to In-N-Out. I voted for Rubio's Fish Tacos. I lost. Because in a democracy, in a pure democracy, what wins? Yeah, the majority votes wins. So we all went to In-N-Out. Now, similar example to that about this past summer, my son, who is fluent in Spanish, part of one of his minors in college is language, and he wanted to do a semester in Argentina to get immersed in speaking Spanish so that he would speak Spanish the whole time. When he came home, he was so enthralled with the food from Argentina that he came home and it was one of the Sundays and he goes, I don't care what any of you guys say, we're going to this Argentinian restaurant, and that's what we're doing. Nobody gets a vote, nobody gets a choice, that's what we're doing. That would be what? Kind of what's that?
Dictatorship.
Yeah, the dictatorship. Kind of a fun way to do it, but there's actually governments like that too. And in most cases, dictatorships, even though you might have one figurehead, who can think of a figurehead right now not in the US, but in another country that might be considered a dictator?
Kim Jong-un.
Perfect example of that, yes, in North Korea. Now, it's kind of foolish of us to think that this one man is making all the decisions. Usually they have a party underneath them or a group of people that help support them. And as you get older, and maybe you've even done it in 8th grade, you probably do in 11th grade, and you'll talk about a different form of government called an oligarchy. You ever heard of that? Oligarchy, Oligarchy, oligarchy. Might be something, just check it out. The last one is a republic, and you brought that up before with Rome. So democracy in the very beginning was an idea that came out of Greece, and it's actually, democracy is actually a Greek word that means people. That's kind of what, if you were to look under what that meant, democracy. Or republic is more of kind of like a people's rights. It's a Latin term. And what's your name? Jesse. What Jesse brought up before was in Rome, there was a thing called the republic. Now, where did you hear that word today, republic? This morning. Where did we hear it?
Starts by the
Well, Pledge of Allegiance. Right. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the with which it stands. Okay, so we're going to kind of get into that a little bit more and find out. Does anybody kind of get an idea of why we say republic in our Pledge of Allegiance and why people maybe talk interspersed between democracy and republic? Have you discussed that before? No. Okay, good. We'll go into the next slide. I think what I've got is on the smart board. How do I find that video again, Scott?
And vote on laws. The people don't vote directly on laws that affect their life. Rather, it's lawmakers who are chosen among the people. And these are supposed to be the best, the smartest, the most ethical, the most moral, the most upright men and women in a society who represent the majority of society. And that's
Of why all of a sudden, with what's been going on in this country, that we're not just having a big vote, right? Of like, let's just make a decision today, get all people together, vote, and let's make a decision, right? It's because we're within a republic and that there's laws. And so the big argument over guns that you guys are discussing is over which amendment? Second Amendment, okay. I've already seen you all in action before in class when I observed you guys last time. You're all, I love the way you're set up in groups. Causes a lot of critical thinking, and that's going to be our goal today, is to kind of just have you guys in your groups discuss kind of different things going on with those three forms of government, and hopefully kind of enhancing those critical thinking skills. Through that process, we're going to have an activity where we're going to create a graphic organizer, which I was really pleased to see that Mr. Lockwood is doing that, and you guys know how to do that. And I'll get into more details with that in a minute. And then there's one more, I think, yeah. And then just kind of demonstrating communicative and collaborative skills in the group presentations. And before we get started on the activity, what I wanted to ask you guys, one of the things that I didn't mention in there is, kind of want to ask you guys some questions. When you saw that America is not a democracy, what did that make you feel? Was that surprising? Anybody have any questions about that? Do you understand that there's different forms of democracy? Activity that we're going to do is I printed out some graphic organizers that I'm going to pass around to you. Is that easier, Mr. Lockwood, than versus having them created on their laptop? If I give them a preprint to that one?
Yeah, give them the printed
Okay.
one, and then they can use the computer.
Okay.
Go back and look at the.
So what I want to do is we're going to break up and you're going to stay in your groups, and we're going to do it. But I want you to pay attention to what the activity is, and then Mr. Lockwood and I will be walking around. And if you need help with it, just ask me, and I'll walk checking it. So this is an example of a worksheet that I'm going to pass out that is a Republic worksheet. So what you're going to do as a table, you're going to write down as many as you can, positives and negatives, and we'll give you like 5 minutes. Positive and negatives of a democracy, a republic, and a dictatorship. But if I tell you that your table is a republic, I'm going to let Mr. Lockwood appoint two people at the table that are the representatives. And so what their job is to do is to vote what are the top two positives and negatives of each one. And then they will also vote on who is going to present for you. And you can either get up here and talk here, you can stay at your table, or if it's easier for you, if you want to put it on your laptop and put it on something there and put it up on the screen, we can do it that way. State our cases here. Let's, what's your name, young man? Gerardo. He is our lone dictator of the class. And what did you find as your positives and negatives?
Not positive was that nobody talked back to me.
Nobody talked back to you?
Everybody skipped me.
Yes.
And they tossed it over.
Nice, good job. So, did you find the process of it easy as a dictator, or what, how was it?
To find
Did everybody listen to you?
positives.
They did? Good. Okay, and then where are my true democracies? Where are my groups, my true, okay, you wanna tell us what you found as your positives and negatives?
The positive that we voted on was that we don't have a dictator,
That, absolutely.
which is good. And the negative that we voted on is that minorities don't get representation.
Very good points, good job. Where's my other democracy? Back here, do you have something you can share? Coming up, because it was this mob rule, it's chaos, that's one of the big reasons why a true democracy doesn't work with a big group of people. Very good point. In my republics,
That's it.
The pros, easier to manage than
Yeah.
easier to manage than everybody voting. The people make the decisions on when.
Good, that's right. I mean, that's a great positive, right, of a republic, is that you don't have to, you trust your representatives to make the decisions for you.
Yeah.
Is that right? Or representative style government that we in is, can you say that again, loud so everybody hears it?
Yeah. When elected, you don't control what they do, and they don't always do what they say.
Exactly, they don't live up to their promises, right? But what's the beauty of a democratic republic when an elected official does that? What can we do the next time that they run for an election?
Not elected.
Not elect them, right? That's why the power of the vote is so strong, either, especially in a republic. Where's my other republic? Is that here?
Okay, so the positive is that people pick the best person to fit as their representative,
Absolutely.
and the negative is that not everyone's voices get heard.
Right, and that's a great point, and I don't think there's probably any form of government that we could put together that's perfect, that gets everybody's voices. But as a group, I'd love to see a raise of hands, who thinks that a republic is the best form of government if they had to choose between these three? Raise your hand, I think that a republic would be the best. So we've got 1, 2, is that hand up? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You're up now, 9. Is that hand up? 10? Okay. How about a dictatorship? Other than the dictator, right? So nobody, right? Well, what about a pure democracy? Anybody? You like a pure democracy? Okay. And does everybody, I guess my goal with this was, does everybody now have a better understanding of the difference between like a true democracy versus a republic? Does that now make sense to you? Like, it gets confusing because a lot of people, they call America and say, oh, we're this great democracy. But from the video, we kind of learn the reality is we're really not a true democracy. We're kind of a representative democracy is what they call it. And that's what you see in England, you see it in Australia, you see it in other countries. That's the most common form of government, is that representative form of government.